Oh yeah, a lot better, man. A
You
lot better.
feeling much?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
All right, and
Good.
oh yeah, and we are live, guys. What's going on, John? How you doing today, bud?
Great. How you doing, Chris?
Good, man. Good. What you wearing, watch-wise today?
NTH Double Ray, the new version.
Nice.
It seems to be a little
I'm
lag
wearing
here,
that.
huh?
I'm enjoying the blow. Just
That thing's
it
cool.
might be on my end, maybe.
That's all right.
But
That's
yeah,
a great
I'm
watch.
wearing this for one more day. Yeah, I'm gonna send it over to Kevin. I don't know if you know Kevin over at Wrong Time Watch. I'm gonna send it over to him next. That's where this is
I'm not
actually
sure.
Rob's personal
Yeah, I'm not sure if I
watch.
met him.
He was kind enough to lend us in.
Cool.
We got Blue Strip Buddha, we got Bruce, Nilo, we got Bobby. Of course, you probably know Bobby from Bobby Legs.
Yeah.
He's in here. Urban
What's up,
Country.
guys?
What's going on, everybody? What are you guys all wearing in the comments watch-wise? No real topic today. Just figured we'd come on and chat watches a little bit today. What you got going on new? You got anything going on?
I got a lot going on. We just did, speaking of NTH, we just did the 40 millimeter subs, just came in with a bunch of new models. There's the new models are Nazario Vino Rosso, which is it's like a Bordeaux color that fades to black on the outside. And the Barracuda Polar, which are the two new NTH subs. And those are killing it. I've got a few pieces left. And then I just picked up the Electricians. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I just saw those over on Rob's channel. Those look cool. They kind of remind me like a little bit of a twist on like a Swatch watch, if that kind of makes sense. But like their own kind of twist.
They're very, very funky. Look, I know a lot of guys out there are purists. They want the automatic movement, and I, of course, love those watches. I love old hand-wound watches, and I love fun watches. I mean, I remember getting my Swatch System 51 the day those came out in New York City. I think it was $100, plastic watch, but they're fun. And the Electricians is really cool. They're, they kind of take the almost like a skeleton, feel on a quartz watch and on the front of the dial. So you see the wires and the gears and, just cool stuff. It's just fun. Not overly expensive. What's really interesting, what a lot of people don't know, is that the Electricians was founded and developed by the same guys that were behind 7 Friday. And, 7 Friday for 2 or 3 years were killing it, maybe longer, 4 or 5 years, killed it in terms of just, growth and sales and things like that. And I was out in Detroit not long ago for a hockey tournament for my son. And I visited a buddy of mine, Armin Durakshin, who owns Durakshin Jewelers out in Michigan. And he had these Electricians, and I just thought they were fun, man. I thought they were really cool. And so I picked those guys up. And what else? What else is going on? Ulsta.
Yeah,
is
definitely cool. Nice.
Yeah, Ulsta's doing great. Ulsta's the Jaws watch. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys.
For those that don't know, by the way, in the comments, which I'm sure you probably heard of them, John runs Watchgauge.com. For those of you guys that I'm sure you guys have probably heard of him before.
No.
In case you guys didn't know.
Who knows? Maybe not.
Great site.
Thanks, guys.
But yeah, other than that, you got anything else new incoming or?
So Ulsta, Ulsta's the Jaws watch. That's the.
Am I still getting a lag?
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little choppy, but that's okay. It's all right. It happens. So Ulsta is the watch that Richard Dreyfuss wore in the movie Jaws. It's the Ulsta Nautiscaf, and I picked those guys up like 6 months ago, and that's really interesting because they're doing 1,975 pieces of the reproduction of the Jaws watch on the Hooper bracelet and everything. And what's really interesting is they didn't make 1,975 watches. They're doing it in small increments. So I'm only able to get 5 or 10 of those a month. So they're selling pretty quickly. Like if I get 10 pieces in, chances are 5 or 6 are already sold for that shipment. And what's really cool is that this year is going to be the 45th anniversary of the movie Jaws, and there is a special limited edition coming out for it. So, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. I sold one to Eric Singer from Kiss, and it turns out that Kiss's head of security is this guy Chris. Now, Chris, and I'm going to mess up his name. Chris Kiska. So Chris, if you guys want to search this dude up, Kizska, I believe it is. Search this dude up. He's the head of Kiss's security. He does security for Guns N' Roses, a couple other bands. But what's really cool is that growing up, his dad was the set designer on Jaws. And I guess back in the 1970s, it wasn't uncommon for people on movie sets just to throw all that crap in the garbage when they were done with it. And Chris, as a little kid, was collecting all this stuff. So Chris actually has the largest collection of Jaws memorabilia on the planet, including the watch that Richard Dreyfuss wore as Matt Hooper in Jaws. So it's cool. With Allstar, I've met some cool people. I mean, like I said, Eric Singer bought one a couple of weeks ago. He and I were on the phone for about an hour. That was pretty cool. So with Ulster coming out with their 45th anniversary edition, we're going to try to do something together with Eric Singer, with Chris, with all of his Jaws memorabilia, and cool things like that. Does the Ulster wear larger than its dimensions? Nilo's asking. Yeah, it does actually. Hold on a second. Oh.
What size is the Ulster again?
So it's 38 millimeters, but I got one here.
Okay.
So
which is almost the perfect size for every size wrist, pretty much.
Well, yeah, and you know what? To be honest with you, I was a little concerned that it was going to wear a little bit small. But the thing is, I don't know if you guys could see that. That's just like a blue sticker on the crown. But it's got a nice level of depth to it, a super domed crystal. And if I put it next to my 43 millimeter NTH, it's not a huge difference. And it's cool because it's got a retro feel. My All-Star I happen to wear on a rubber strap. And it wears probably to me like a 40 millimeter piece does. Or maybe even a 41. Yeah. So it's a cool piece.
And it's crazy to think that Jaws is 45 years old now.
Jeez, makes me feel old, brother. That was long before you were born, right?
Yeah, well, I was born in '83, so it was a little bit before my time. But so I remember growing up watching it. It made me not want to go in the ocean when I was a kid.
I think it gave that feeling to a lot of people. I was really little when that movie came out, but I remember the same thing. I mean, you're not too terribly far from the ocean, right? I grew up literally like an eighth of a mile.
I'm a couple miles.
Yeah, I'm like an eighth of a mile from the ocean, and I literally grew up on boats and swimming in the ocean and things like that. And I remember when I was old enough to see that movie and I saw it, I remember I was terrified, absolutely terrified. So,
yeah.
Random Rob, what's up, bud?
What's going on, Rob?
Hans is asking, what's that guitar behind you? I'm gonna veer off of watches for a second. So this thing, right? It's an Epiphone Flame Cat. Funny story about this guitar. I was in a band pushing 25 to 20 years ago. Me and my buddies thought it'd be a great way to get free drinks and meet girls, right? So I ended up buying this guitar for myself. I saved up for it. It was a limited edition guitar. And did I lose you? Are you there, Chris?
No, I'm still here. I just
cool.
Put you on solo layout so that way I can see the guitar better.
Yeah, I thought I lost you. So in any case, I saved up for this. It was a limited edition Epiphone called the Flame Cat. It's got the flames, obviously, dice knobs, dice mother of pearl inlay, just some cool stuff. So I bought this guitar for myself. Make sure it doesn't fall. 25 years ago. And and stuff now. Sorry, guys. So, and you know, after I got engaged and got married and things like that, the band kind of went by the wayside. And my best friend, who was my lead guitar player in the band, he coerced me into buying the original Flame Cat off of me. And he still owns that one, but he modified it and stuff. And so for years, I was on the hunt for one, and you couldn't find them anywhere. And about a year and a half ago, there were 2 or 3 or 4 of them popped up on the internet for sale, and I ended up getting this one, which is in far better shape than my original one. So it's called the Epiphone Flame Cat, nice. And it's FLAMEKAT, and it's they're relatively inexpensive considering. It's a great playing guitar, and I think it's probably the best looking guitar I've ever had for sure. Yeah.
Nice. So a lot of people don't know that's one of your other hobbies besides watches, right? Is
music. So I'm a huge fan of music. All kinds of music. I shouldn't say all kinds of music. It's funny because I'm really into punk rock and I'm really into country, which is really strange. I like some classic rock. I like rock and roll. I like some heavy metal, but you know, the 2 biggies for me are punk rock and country. And I started off when we decided to make a band. We were all bartending, me and my buddies, back in college days, and we decided that the bands we were playing in our bars that we were working in, the bands all sucked. And my buddy was convinced we could do better, and he booked us. And I didn't know how to play a single note on a single instrument. And he booked us, and we had about 8 weeks before our first show. So I said, dude, I can't play anything. What are you talking about? So he goes, don't worry about it. He goes, we'll buy you a bass. He goes, bass is super easy. We ended up learning like 40 songs in 6 weeks. And we self-promoted so well that our first night at ever playing out, we ended up packing the place to capacity, and they literally ran out of beer. The bar ran out of beer. That's how crazy it was. So that first night, the guy ended up booking us once. I think we played once every month or once every 2 weeks for about a year and a half in that place. And it was fun. It was fun. So yeah, but I'm super into music. I'm into watches and into ice hockey. Those are like my 3 big vices. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's of course watches, and then my other one is cars.
You know, I've always had a passion for cars. I just never felt like I was in a financially opportune moment to start buying cars, right? Like it's always something, you know, like when I was young and single and, you know, bartending and doing whatever I was doing, I was traveling a lot. Then I got married, right? And we had to buy a house, so I couldn't buy a car. And then, then we start saving some money up, and all of a sudden kids come. And then, so now I've got 3 children. I've never gotten a really cool car. And, yeah. So I would love to get into buying cars, but you know, until my kids are out of the house and I'm done funding their hockey careers, I think my car dreams are on hold. So, you know, I just rock around in my nice big old pickup truck. Yeah, let's see. Take a look.
And Hans is saying there's a lot of watches, cars out
there. It's very true. And you know what's really funny, Hans, that you bring that up, is that because of my career in the watch industry, I've become very good friends with a lot of big time or what I consider to be real big time guitarists and musicians. And it's really kind of cool because a lot of guitarists that are out there are super into watches.
Yeah, it's the same as with cars too. There's like a lot of car guys that are into watches as well. Like I think a lot of the hobbies kind of get twisted in together, you know.
Sure. I mean, think about it. As guys, we've got sports, we've got cars, we've got watches, we've got music possibly, but what else is there, right? Like, you know, and I think that's why when people are into certain kind of collecting, they can get into collecting a lot of things. Like I know a lot of watch collectors are big firearm collectors, as well as maybe like knives and swords and stuff. So to me personally, I just think it's fun to talk to people who are passionate about almost anything they can buy and collect, it's just, I find things interesting. Like I had a buddy of mine years ago, or a guy I knew, I used to sell watches to him, and his other passion was swords. Right. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, he said all these crazy handmade Damascus swords and axes and things like that, and collected them. And I was thinking to myself, well, gee, how much can a sword go for? And he once told me that his collection was north of $1 million of swords, but he collected like these ancient swords from Japan. He had some like swords from like medieval, like, Europe. I mean, totally crazy, man. It's like, and I was so fascinated by it. I have no fascination with swords. I'm just fascinated with the idea that somebody collects that stuff.
Yeah, I got a buddy that I work with. He's the younger guy, early 20s, but he actually makes swords. Like he's really big into, forging an actual sword and everything. He collects them and all that stuff too. Like me and him, like I'll get with him and he'll talk, swords. I'll talk watches, whatever. Like he's into watches, but not like he is into swords,
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because I never really thought about swords. I never really thought about knives and things like that. And then that show Forged in Fire, I stumbled upon that about a year or two ago, and I'm like, I'm fascinated. I mean, these guys take a chunk of steel that's like this big and turn it into this kick-ass Bowie knife or something, And I don't know anything about knives, but I just think it's very cool. I'm like, I'd like to try that.
Yeah, Hans brings up a good point. He said having passions are good for the soul, especially with everything going on right now. The pandemic and everything. It gives us time to get away from it.
You couldn't be more correct, man. Couldn't be more correct. I mean, I think having guys like you and Random Rob and Bruce and all these other great YouTubers out there, I think that's kind of our reprieve from all the crazy stuff that's happening around us, right? And whether it's cars or watches or anything else, I mean, if you have something to have some passion about, to have some interest in, that kind of keeps your mind lubricated, and gets away from all the BS that's going on in the world, whether it be the plague or politics or any of this other garbage that can poison us, and it's crazy, because about a couple weeks ago, even before the election, man, I had to literally stop watching the news and scrolling through my Facebook feed. I kind of unfollowed anybody that brought up any sort of politics. I don't care what side you're on, because to me, we shouldn't be this toxic. And and I found myself watching more YouTube, putting on news, and I was watching somebody make knives on YouTube. I was watching, a bunch of the wristwatch YouTube stuff. And I'll be honest with you, I never really watched YouTube. I'm not a big YouTube guy, and I think I'm a little too old for that generation, So it's interesting.
Never too old for it.
I think it's so important to have passions. And I tell my kids that. I'm like, look, you're gonna do what you're gonna do in school, pass school, get through it, try to do well if you can. I'm like, but find something you're passionate about, because I said, look at me, for example. I said, I had a job for damn near 20 years, and I could have stayed an employee forever, but I was so passionate and I wanted to do it on my own. And, I always tell my kids, no matter what you do, have something you're passionate about. Try to do that for a living. And if not, at least have it on the side where you can have something that fills your heart,
Definitely. I mean, when you're doing what you love, you're not really even working, like we mentioned before.
So true, man. I hate to say it. My job's so easy because I love it so much. And, don't get me wrong. I have sleepless nights. There are times when the money starts getting tight, or, something like that. But, it's a different kind of stress than I used to have before it was mine. Now that it's mine, it's a different kind of stress. And stress, the stress now motivates me. It pushes me. It makes me want to come into the office at 9 o'clock at night and stay here till 1, and it's a healthy stress, in my opinion,
Definitely. I mean, just look at mention some other YouTubers. You know, I watch a lot of car YouTubers and stuff. Like, look at TJ Hunt. I'm sure you probably heard of him, the Strat Man. Like, they make a living just filming cars, pretty much, like doing what they love.
I think that's so cool, right? Like, I think it's so cool that somebody could be passionate about something and start filming with your camera, and all of a sudden they're making $1 million a year. You know, and I find that. I mean, and God bless them. You know, like I hear people like, "Oh, those kids, you know, whatever they." You know, they're making so much money doing nothing or whatever. I'm like, God bless them, man. They were in the right spot at the right time, and they're living their dream, man. God bless anybody who's doing that, you know.
Yeah. Nilo says he watches a lot of barbecue on YouTube now. I've seen Barbecue Pit Boys. They're pretty good. They make some pretty good stuff. I don't know if you've seen them or not.
No, you know, that's the other thing, though, is I know people are passionate about barbecuing and having these big smokers, and that's so cool to me, right? Like, I would love to like go hang out with somebody for like a weekend who's like totally passionate about that stuff and just kind of lay that passion on me, man. Tell me about smoke. Like, I don't know how to smoke, you know, a rack of ribs, you know, but I would love to see somebody who's passionate about that stuff, which is why there's TV shows on building knives, and there was a barbecue show on for a little bit, but like it's just cool. It's just cool stuff, and as we said before, it takes your brain away from all the crap that's out there in the world, you know.
Definitely. Now, do you think one day there might actually be a TV show about watches on TV, or do you think it's just going to stick to the YouTube genre? I know me and you have talked about this before.
I mean, this is a hand to God, honest to God story. When I left my job 6 years ago to start my own business, I actually started a different business in the watch industry, 6 years ago. But at that time, I was friendly with a guy out in LA who was big in the production world. And he called me up one day. We were just chatting about something absurd. It wasn't about anything in general. And I said, "Hey," I got a show on watches. And he's like, "Well, what are you talking about?" I said, "Kind of make it like diners, drive-ins, and dives. You know, that Guy Fieri, or whatever his name is, the guy with the white hair sticking up." I said, what about a show like that where, you know, a guy, hopefully it was going to be me if it panned out. And I'm like, what if a guy like that visits like this cool authorized retailer, and then like another segment he visits a brand, and then another segment he reviews a watch, and that you do 3 segments in a half-hour clip, all 7 minutes each or whatever. I said that would be so cool, and I said there's billions of people out there who love watches. I'm like, I think it'd be a kick-ass show, and we explored it a little bit. The truth of the matter was, I think it was going to cost like $250,000 or $500,000 just to shoot a pilot. And then you got to go out and sell that pilot. And I don't know that whole world, but I just thought it'd be so cool, man. You know?
And I spoke with somebody that he's, I won't mention his name, but he's also got a pretty big podcast. He's in the car world too, but he was also into watches. So you can probably take a guess at who I'm talking about, but I had messaged him a couple times about that.
I have no idea. And I don't follow that stuff.
I'll tell you off camera, but he had said the same thing. He's like that. Just the cost to run it over the actual production value. That's where he thinks that the podcasts are better off than the actual TV show.
Well, here's my opinion, and I may be very wrong, but I've told this I've got a handful of friends who have pretty sizable podcasts, and I said this to every single one of them. I'm like, a guy like me who commutes less than a mile to work every day is never going to put on a podcast. The truth is, if I'm sitting at my desk working, I can't focus on the podcast and work. It's just not possible for me. So, and I'm never in the car anymore, alone anyway, where I'm going to listen to a podcast. So I said, if you guys have a podcast, get a camera, set it up off to the side, film it, put it up as this podcast on SoundCloud and iTunes and all that stuff, and then also put it up on YouTube. I'm like, the truth of the matter is, I might watch that YouTube show, but I'm never going to listen to the podcast. You know, kind of like Joe Rogan does, right? Like now he's got high production dollars to spend, but, you know, think about it. You can go on YouTube and listen to a Joe Rogan podcast, but while you're looking at him and the guests and so on and so forth. I think podcasters should be doing that. If you have a sizable podcast, why the hell not do it? You're just exponentially growing the size of your audience and your reach. So
I think a lot more people like the podcast and like forums like this because they know it's not scripted. Like I could say, my videos aren't scripted all I want, which they're not. But I mean, I think of like a topic to talk about or to watch or whatever, but they may still think it's scripted. But this, they know it's not. We're just kind of speaking off cuff,
And even that doesn't matter, where you put the content, right? Like, because what we did a little bit with that Watch With Us channel was if we did a talk like this, I would record it in video. I like to record because I like to, let's say we're talking about a particular watch. I like to edit in full screenshots of the watch and some other things like that. So, but it's the same thing. It's just a natural talk. But I would film it. I would edit it. I wouldn't edit out the content much. I just put in some cool visual and then download it and upload it to YouTube. But then I'd also rip the audio from it and upload it to SoundCloud and iTunes. So if it's a person who, commutes 40 minutes to work, they can listen to it in the car. If it's somebody like me who would prefer to watch it, on YouTube. So in my opinion, like, look, if you guys have a podcast out there, throw that stuff up on YouTube, man. Also,
Definitely. But what about I was going to go into probably personal collections. You got anything on the radar? Personal collection, watch wise?
To purchase now. No, I go through these phases of I think like everybody does, right? Like you go through different types of phases. Right now, I really want an 80. I want an Audemars back. But it's so practical for me right now from a financial standpoint. So, and I got to be honest with you, anything under $5 or $6 or $7, maybe even $7,000 or $8,000 that isn't a micro brand, I'm not inspired by. I don't really see. I don't see a lot of mainstream brands at $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 that I can get excited about. So there's really not much on my radar. And micro, brands, I'm obviously I buy and sell micro brands as a living, but I also buy watches from other micro brand owners that I don't do business with, just simply because I love their watches. So in that respect, I'll probably end up with a few. I just don't know exactly what yet.
Hans is saying I was just going to answer Hans real quick. He said he fancies doing a channel called Watches and Wine. We get the idea. Hey, if you want to start a channel, man, go for it. It's fun.
So that's another combination that goes really well together, right? Like, because wine is a big hobby and a passion for people, and so is watches. And it was funny because I wanted to do until this whole COVID thing in August or September, I was going to do a get together here on Long Island to celebrate Watchgauge's 3rd year anniversary. September 1st, my 3rd year in business. So I was gonna do a get together, like a little party for anybody who could make it to Long Island. And I was gonna do it. It's gonna be micro brands and micro brews because I have a couple of buddies who own breweries. So we were actually going to host something here in my office. And my office is kind of like a warehouse. It's split down the middle. There's a warehouse on one side, and this is the office and the studios in the back. The warehouse has a huge garage door, so we're going to pop that open. We're going to put a cornhole out in the parking lot. We're going to have a couple microbreweries set up like tents and offer free beer and stuff. So long story short, I think watches and wine. I know that's a huge thing for people, and in my case, I'm a big fan of beer. That's one of the other things I like in life, and I think, you got to combine anything. That's cool.
Definitely. Yeah, I like a good microbrew too. We got a couple decent ones here locally.
Yeah, you know what? And to me, it's really kind of cool. I look at brewers. It's a hard word to say. Microbrewers. And I look at those guys similar to the way I look at somebody who starts a micro brand. They got a passion about something, and they jump in. And what's really cool is I'm in a town called Bayport on Long Island. The next town east of me is Blue Point. Blue Point Brewery was started 20 years ago or so, and we used to go in there. Legit, the tasting room was like 8 feet by 12 feet was the whole tasting room, and we used to go in there and hang out, talk to the guys who founded it. There's 2 buddies. That company sold for like 20 or 30 or 40 million dollars about 5 years ago to Anheuser-Busch. So
yeah,
I think it'd be super cool if some micro brands start getting purchased by guys like Swatch and Richemont. You know, so that's kind of my joke of a prediction, but hopefully it wouldn't be a joke. You know.
Well, I mean, look at India. I hate to bring up MVMT, but look at them. They sold out to who was it? Was it Movado?
I certainly don't think they're a micro brand per se, but I guess their roots are micro brandish. But yeah, they sold to Movado, man, for millions and millions and millions. And God bless those guys. Congrats to them, man. Good on them.
Definitely. But the one I had on my radar, by the way, next was the. You remember when I had the Breitling, the Super Ocean Heritage? Yeah, sure. I had the 44, and I missed that one. I ended up selling that one to Bruce. He sold that one since, of course. But I'm probably going to pick up the 42 millimeter version next, probably. The blue, that's the one I'm currently saving for now.
That's cool. That's it. I mean, it's always a solid piece. Blue shirt. Yeah, it was, right? He says Blue Point Tasting Room was indeed tiny. I mean, it was so funny because if there was like 6 or 7 people lined up, it was hard to walk past them. It was so tiny. Cool place though, man. Very cool place. Yeah.
That's kind of how New South is here. I don't know. You ever heard of New South Brewing?
No.
They're local here to Myrtle Beach. They're kind of like a smaller one. My cousin, actually, he does that for a living in Philly. I have to find the name of the company that he works for. But he works locally in Philly, not too far from you, and the one I went to visit a while back. But that's what he does for a living is microbrew.
Yeah,
so he used to work for Duck Rabbit. If you remember Duck Rabbit.
Yeah, I remember. I remember seeing I remember the logo to that one, but I don't think I ever had it. But I was just gonna say if I wasn't in the
Watchgauge Brewing Company.
That's what I'm thinking, right? Like, so if I wasn't in the watch business, you know, I'd like to think that I would be, you know, making beer, you know. But yeah, following the passion, man. Yeah. The funny thing is too is I meet, you know, naturally I meet a lot of people at, you know, whether it be through socially or hockey or whatever, and like, oh, you know, what do you do? Well, I'm in the watch business, but you know, I deal with micro brands, and my analogy to people is, it's kind of like micro brews are to the watch industry, right? Like you have Heineken, Budweiser, and so on and so forth. Then you have all the micro brews. I said that's really what I focus on in the watch industry, and people are fascinated by it. It's so cool.
Yeah. Bruce is saying if you ever do the microbrews and microbrews, he said he'll join. I guess he's not too far from you. Bruce is good people too. He's been on a bunch of my live streams with me.
What town is he in?
I don't think he's too far. I'm not sure. Bruce might be able to answer, but I don't think he's too far from you.
Cool. Well, he's always welcome to come by, man. I always love having people. There's like a man cave here, you know, so I always love having people come by. You know?
And then Hans is saying,
meet up with John. Franklin Square is like 30 minutes from me.
He's saying,
come on by, brother.
Yeah, definitely. You should definitely get up with Bruce sometime.
Yeah, I'll buy you a beer.
He just bought a new Bluesy.
A new what?
The 80, the Bluesy, the Rolex. He just got one of those.
Yeah. All right, cool.
From the 80. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, come on out. We'll do a video here, and we'll send it over to Chris to publish.
There you go. Small world, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you got a pile of watches in, huh? Or is that on the DL?
I'm not gonna say too much yet. One of them was in my video I did today, but I'm not gonna say too much yet who it's from. Where some people know, you know. Like I said, the video won't publish till next week. I'm gonna be on another channel. A lot of you guys probably know the channel. I'm sure you've heard of him. But he was real kind to send in I got about 7 different watches. So I don't know if I think he might want to start working with me like on reviews and stuff, which is pretty cool. So
cool,
very cool. We'll see how that goes. And like I said, he's pretty good people. From what I've seen, it seems like he's like how he is on YouTube, like how he is in person.
That's good.
He seems like he's pretty cool.
It's one of the things I really dig about.
I know.
YouTubers. You know, generally good people.
Definitely.
Except you, though.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, the good outweighs the bad. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, the good outweighs. No, there's a few of them out there that are, we won't mention.
Again,
but overall, there's a lot of cool ones though. Especially
I don't watch enough of it to get wrapped up in drama.
So what?
I said I don't watch enough YouTube to get wrapped up in the drama.
Yeah, definitely. Rob, if he's still in the comments, has been really good. He's been really instrumental in helping my channel out, and
he's one of the best.
Promote me. Yeah,
he's one of the very best.
Yeah, he helps promote a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, him and Bruce Williams is really good. Both really good.
Yep. Two great dudes right there for sure. Hey, thanks, Hans. Appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, he is. John sent a good bit of watches out there for me to check out too. You've sent probably at least 6 or 7 different pieces out for me to check out in the past year or so.
Time, right? I think over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta send some more down to you.
Definitely love checking some out. Might want to check out one of those electrician's watches you were talking about.
In fact, I gotta get Rob's got a handful. He posted a video I think a week or 2 ago that I sent him. So maybe I'll have him pop a couple over to you before sending them back to me.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah, man.
Sounds good. And Nilo's asking anything to Watchgauge?
Yeah, so I just got in those new subs from NTH, which are killer. I love that Barracuda Polar. It's a white. It kind of, the Barracuda Polar to me kind of feels like almost like if you took like an Explorer 2 kind of vibe and put a rotating bezel on it, with the white dial. A handful of NTH subs. And the funny thing with the NTH subs is most, or all the NTHs, is that most of those sell right away when I get them. And, when you look on Watchgauge at my NTH page, I only probably have 1 or 2 or 3 of each one of those models left. I mean, they typically sell extremely quickly. So the NTH subs are the new ones just came back in. And, I see Hans saying nod to history. Yeah, so that's kind of one, one take that Chris puts on the brand is it's a nod to history. And, so that's the NTH is always super solid. The Ulsta Nautoscaf we talked about before, again, I get 5 to 10 of those a month, and they sell out really quickly. And in maybe about 2 months, within the next month or 2, we're going to do a very special limited edition Nautoscaf, Ulsta Nautoscaf Super Automatic, which is going to be a 45th anniversary movie Jaws. It's very cool, and it's only 100 pieces. Now, the cool thing about Ulsta too, for a micro brand, is that they're 100% Swiss made, with the exception of the movement. The movement's Japanese, but everything else is made in Switzerland, assembled in Switzerland, quality controlled, adjusted, everything in Switzerland. And the limited edition piece that we're doing is going to have Swiss movement, so it's going to be 100% Swiss made, which is really cool for a micro brand.
Nice, yeah.
And and I also work with Formex, which I don't know if I have a Formex on my desk. I don't know. I thought I had one. My desk is a disaster right now. But if you guys haven't seen a Formex Essence in person, I can confidently tell you that it is the nicest watch I've ever held under $3,000 or $4,000. It's absolutely gorgeous. So the Formex, we just did the Reef, the new dive watch from Formex. They'll be delivering this month. What else? The Electricians is new. Yeah, so there's always a lot going on with here at Watchgauge. It's always something because, for me, I get very, very bored of the same thing over and over. So I'm always kind of looking for something fun to work with and fun to sell. And, one thing I am doing that's very cool, which isn't really a watch, and this is actually the very, very, very first time I'm talking about it anywhere, is I'm doing a very cool watch stand. Now, many of you guys might know Jerry Lepore. he makes these watch monsters, right? Like you rest your watch on it at night. This whole thing glows. So
I still need to pick one up from my Seiko, my orange monster I got.
It's so cool, man. They're fun, and the whole thing is luminescence. But a few months back, I was talking to Jerry. I got this for myself. I got one for a buddy of mine, and I said maybe we'll do a Watchgauge watch caddy for like your nightstand. Okay. So this is the very first time I'm even talking about it, but we're in the final stages of the development of them. I think the first prototype just got done, and they're going to be really cool. They're going to be super affordable. It's going to hold 4 watches. I don't tell you about the design of it yet, but I think you guys are going to dig it. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Honestly,
nice.
I did that just because it sounded fun. I guarantee I'm not going to make much money on them at all, which is cool. I just think they're fun.
Yeah, Jerry's pretty cool. He makes good stuff, cool stuff too.
Yeah,
he's in Random Rob's Patreon group with all of us there.
Yeah, Hans just asked a cool question. What's my opinion of Autodromo? I like Autodromo. I got a really, really, really wild story about Autodromo. How much time are we doing here, Chris?
As long as you can go. I don't have to be. Well, I got to start getting ready for work here in probably about half an hour or so.
So I'm gonna tell you a fun story. And it Autodromo. So I have a safe behind me here on the floor, right, where I keep some personal stuff. All right. This will lead into Autodromo, I promise, but it's gonna start off a little strange. I designed a watch for to commemorate the Ford GT. This is a Louis Monet watch. I did 20 of these for a client at almost 30 grand a piece for a special client, right? And the story is when I delivered these, we hoped and planned on doing a limited edition version of a $25,000 or $30,000 watch that was only going to be available to the people who buy a Ford GT starting at $500,000. Mm-hmm. And we pitched the proposal. I'm thinking to myself, well, gee, if we sell a $25,000 watch to up to 1,000 people, it's obviously a ton of money. But even if a half of the people who are buying a car bought themselves a custom watch that matched the car, we're still making a ton of money, right? So long story short, we put in the proposal. I was pretty darn confident we were going to get it. And next thing you know, I heard Autodromo got it. And needless to say, my heart was absolutely broken. So, I like Autodromo. I like, Bradley's a cool dude. He's a great designer. They make great watches. I love their designs. And this is tongue in cheek, but I'm like, because of them, I missed out on that Ford gig. And it's funny because I saw Bradley at the Warner Round about 2 years ago, and I happened to be wearing my Ford GT watch. And I walk by him, and I had never met him in person before this point, and I didn't even know what he looked like personally. So I'm walking by his booth and at Worn and Wound, and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I know that watch." I look at him, I go, "You're Bradley, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah." So we had a good laugh about it, and but Autodromo is a cool brand, a very cool brand.
Yeah, I've never had any experience with them firsthand, but their pieces look pretty cool. Definitely really cool. Definitely something unique.
Yeah, very cool. It's again, he's one of these guys who went out and followed his dream, and he's kind of like a little bit bigger than a micro brand at this point. I feel, you know what I mean? I don't know. I get the impression that they've kind of grown out of the micro brand phase into maybe a little more. I know they're tight with the Worn and Wound guys, which is a pretty big deal.
Yep, we've got Clive in the house. What's going on, Clive? And then Hans was asking, do you have any experience with Smiths? I know personally I've tried Smiths out. I don't know if you know George Roses. You probably seen him in the groups. He sent me his Smiths Explorer.
I've never had any experience with the Smiths. No. I like their designs a lot. It's kind of cool. The first the first time I really paid any attention to it, I think I saw it on Facebook, like a Facebook post, and I actually thought it was a vintage watch at first, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then all of a sudden, I followed the link or whatever, and it turned out that it wasn't a vintage watch, but I think they do a pretty great job at nailing the design to give that that old school feel.
And that 36 mil actually fits. Even my big stone have interest. They actually fit pretty decent for the size, what they are. And they're well made too. I mean, for like I think it ends up being like $500 US, I think, somewhere around there.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it ends up being, and they're well made.
Yeah.
And then Clive is asking what's bigger than a micro brand and mini brand.
Yeah, it's good, right? Exactly. Yeah, Clive. It's like that step up the ladder, I suppose. I don't know. It's there are some brands that kind of like look at Christopher Ward, for instance, right? Chris Ward was a micro brand back in the day, but I would certainly say that they've risen above micro brand status for sure. So yeah, maybe a mini brand, and then it goes to a medium brand, and then a slightly large brand.
Maybe like a boutique brand, maybe.
Yeah, it's so funny what look, everybody kind of has their own words, right? Like their own take on words in the watch industry. Like some people call things homages, when other people call them copies. I mean, when I think of a boutique brand, I think of like H. Moser and Louis Monet and MB&F and Richard Mille. I think a boutique brand, for some reason, I always, in my mind, when I hear it, I'm always thinking like those ultra expensive, small brands.
Yeah. Clive making jokes
about my cooter hat.
This guys look like cooter from Duke.
Yeah. No, so this is Howie's hockey tape. I don't know why. But yeah, it's funny, man. I born and raised in New York, and I drive a pickup truck and wear trucker hats. Go figure,
I got a pretty cool trucker hat from Talker, actually.
Yeah,
Ross.
That's a brand I really like.
I wear it a good bit.
Yeah, that's a cool brand. I think they're doing a lot of really fun stuff.
Oh yeah. And Sophie, she seems like she knows our watches too when it comes to watches. One of the owners, her and Austin's the other owner, right?
Yeah, I've never met Austin. I know Sophie pretty well. We've met on a handful of occasions, and actually, the last time I saw her was in Basel, Switzerland. You know what? She's a cool cat. She works hard, man. She's always doing something, involved, whether it's be with the Red Bar and then Talker. I mean, I think now I'm gonna mess this up. It's not Watchinista. She like works for like I can't recall who. In any case, she's just very, very, very well connected. She's a super cool woman who kicks ass in the watch industry, and it's cool to see her succeeding, man.
And then you're probably familiar with this. I just got this in from Ross and Christian, the core diver.
Yeah.
Over at Champion. Christian Champion.
Yeah. Christian's great.
The Ocean Crawler. Yeah.
Did you see those winders he's doing?
No, I hadn't gotten a chance to see those yet.
Go over to Ocean Crawler's website. He's doing a pre-order for probably the coolest watch winder I've ever seen.
Okay, cool.
It's expensive, but it's cool.
Cool. I spoke with him not too long ago. I think here in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to try and get him on a live stream as well. Him and RT from Nordic.
RT is one of my best friends in the industry. I love that guy. He's amazing. He's got and he's been through a ton. For those of you who followed, what's been going on with him and his brand and the Swatch Group lawsuit and all that stuff. And that dude is like, talk about tenacity, talk about desire and never giving up, man. RT is a dude who inspires me every time I talk to him. Great guy. This is a good question from Hans. Who do you see as becoming a well-established brand from current micro brands presently? Great question, dude. I definitely, my money's on Formex. I mean, some people argue Formex isn't a micro brand, right? Formex has been around, I want to say, since the 90s. But it was always a very small, independently family-owned brand. And a handful of years ago, Raphael, the owner, he purchased the company, and they kind of, I don't know that the company was even really viable at that point. I think they were 3/4 of the way out of business. Raphael purchased the company, and Raphael truly runs this brand like a micro brand. And in my opinion, it is a micro brand for sure. By the way it's operated, the way it's owned, so on and so forth. The one cool difference with Formex is that they have existing cool case designs with the shock absorption system. The other cool thing that not a lot of people know is that Raphael's dad, and I'm recalling this from memory, but Raphael, I believe it's Raphael's dad, is a big time exec in the watch industry, but not with brands. He works on the back end. He works at he either owns or is an exec at like a major manufacturer in the watch industry that supplies major brands. So he does cases and dials and hands and things like that. So what's really cool about Formex is that, in my opinion, they're 100% of a micro brand. Everything is kind of made down the road from where they're at. Excuse me. And and my money, if somebody would say hey, what's the next micro brand to kind of follow the footsteps of Chris Ward or even bigger, I think it's going to be Formex for sure.
Okay. You don't think maybe Monta might be up and coming for that, for like more mainstream?
I definitely would put money on Monta as well. I would definitely bet on them. I talk about another great group of guys, man. Monta's a great group of dudes and kick-ass watches. Those watches, I definitely think are some of the best watches out there for the money. Again, sub $5,000 watches, some of the best watches I've ever seen. In my opinion, blows away the likes of Tag Heuer and all other, equally priced.
Yeah, a lot of watch for the money. Definitely a lot of watch for the money. See you later, Nilo. Nilo said he's got to go.
Good to see you, brother.
Watching, Nilo. Hans is asking, is Yima a micro? Their name was bought out, if I'm correct, right? Did somebody buy their name out where they were brands that went out in the quartz crisis?
That's another brand that's been around. The name has been around forever and ever and ever. I don't really know the history of them. I don't know who bought them, and I don't know how they're run, to be honest with you. I'd have to do a little research into that. I don't know if they'd be considered a micro. My feeling is, I feel like there's a lot of money behind it. I may be wrong, and if I am, hopefully I am wrong, because that means they're doing a really great job at promoting and getting the name out there. So, but I don't know.
If I'm correct, did they just come out with their own in-house movement for the Yima?
I don't know. I don't follow the brand, to be honest with you. I don't really know much about them.
That's one I hadn't had in yet. Hopefully I'll get one in at some point to take a look at it. They look like pretty cool looking watches.
Yeah, I don't really, I haven't really, I don't even pay.
Hans is saying, but in current business geography.
Yeah, they're funded. I'm guessing that means that they're they're backed by a big group. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, because I feel like they're spending a lot of money on marketing and
And we spoke about this last night, Clive and I, actually. What are your thoughts on Horus coming out with their own in-house movement?
I love Horus. Horus, a great brand. If the question was posed to me, what big brand, what major brand acts most like a micro brand, I'd say Horus is definitely on the top of that list, because they're an independent brand, and there's they do a lot of really cool things, especially with their social media, with their Instagram. They run contests. They get input from clients that they actually listen to. So Horus is a cool brand, and I think it's great to do your own movement. I'm not one of these guys who feels like it's necessary for a brand to have their own movement. On the contrary, I think that some brands just shouldn't do it. I'm not going to call out any brands, but I know a handful of brands over the last 10 or 15 years that came out their own movement, and they were awful. I mean, the movements were awful. They did, whether it be quality control or damage issues or just whatever it is. So there's a lot of brands out there. I feel like they shouldn't come out with their own movement. I'm excited about Horus doing it. You know, I think
I was just asking how important is oh, sorry. I was just saying, I was asking how important YouTube brand.
Oh, I think it's vital. I think it's 100%. Yeah, you have to. The funny thing is, if I look at my analytics, the majority of my business comes from my YouTube channel, and I don't do that many videos. You know, I was going to tell you a story, but I'd rather not get into certain names. But long and the short of it is, I was talking with somebody who has an enormous YouTube channel a while back, and I was explaining to them that it should be a business for them. It absolutely should be a business, and they disagreed. They didn't want to sell out, which I get. But think about it. You know, you get these watch brands who spend, you know, $10,000 on a middle of the book GQ ad. If they want to be on the front, you know, on the inside back cover or inside front cover, it's like $25,000 for a 1 month issue. Now think about that, right? So that magazine gets distributed to hundreds of thousands of people, whatever it may be. It might sit on a coffee table. But what kind of return are they getting? You can't gauge the return on investment on, let's say, a magazine ad or anything like that. A YouTube channel, right? Like, let's say Seiko paid you $5,000 to do this review, and you've got a certain size audience. That review is going to stay up forever. I mean, it's there until you take it down, right? And I get people commenting on videos I made 3 years ago, right? Like that content's always there. People search for something, it pops up in the feed. If you've got a big enough channel, you're going to get recommended more, and so on and so forth. In my opinion, not only for micro brands, just for the watch industry, I think any brand that's not actively supporting watch YouTubers who can make an impact on their business, I think they're out of their mind. I would spend, if it were me and I owned even a micro or even a big brand, any advertising dollars I had, I would put towards YouTube. And that's just my opinion.
And a lot of times, if they're like channels like mine, where, you know, I just like to look at the watch, like I don't even accept, some of them accept money or whatever, but a lot of times it's just, you're just putting in the cost of shipping basically, and then you know, it's through their word.
Well, what I think is really great about most YouTubers is it's not a business for them, right? Like, so I'm playing both sides of the advocate here, right? Like, I'm thinking as a business person and as a brand or as a YouTuber, let's say, who had an enormous following, to me, it makes too much sense to use that as a vehicle to help market and sell watches.
Yeah.
On the same token, as a guy who may watch a YouTube video, I would tend to watch a lot less videos from somebody I know who's getting paid to do those videos. So I'm completely, you know, counter talking my points here, but I'm playing both sides of it, you know. I think the guys, the YouTubers out there who don't necessarily get paid or accept anything in return are the much more credible YouTubers. But, you know, look, I'm not going to throw out YouTuber names again. I'm not very into watching a ton of YouTube, and I don't I definitely get wrapped up in the drama. But I'm sure that the top list of guys that people don't like is going to be the same list if you ask 20 different guys, right, who do consume.
Yeah.
You know, and those are people who may or may not have sold out. There's bloggers are the same way, right? Like there was a long point in my life where every morning I'd walk into work, I'd have my coffee, I'd have this, that, and I'd get in a half hour, 45 minutes early, and I'd like to sit down and have my coffee, and I like to read through all of the big blogs and see what's new, what new posts are up over the last day or two. And it got to the point where some of the biggest blogs were obviously, you know, getting paid to write fluff pieces about garbage watches or garbage brands. And it got to the point where I couldn't even read those blogs. I wouldn't even visit those sites anymore because the credibility wasn't there. So
I got you.
You gotta, as a YouTuber, as a watch company, you have to balance, you know, that whole thing we just talked about, to where you're not offending people. It's tricky. It's really tricky. And not to mention, it's you know, I think a lot of us know how very, very difficult it is to build a big YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's been ones that's been around for years, and of course at the same time, I feel like they should be paid because they're putting their time in. They put their time in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like they
you know, it's everybody's got their own opinion. The guys who are doing it on whether they are making enough money or not. I mean, you know, and I don't know firsthand, but I know that, you know, you can make a couple bucks from the ad revenue on YouTube, which is cool. I think they deserve every bit of that. They're probably getting underpaid. I think personally for me, if somebody said who would you like to partner up with, you know, I think it's guys like Rob or Bruce, right? Like who don't ask for payment, don't ask for free watches, things like that, have a huge audience. And look, if they're getting paid on the back end through ads or other means, God bless them. They should be. They're putting in a ton of work. They're getting they have a ton of knowledge on how to do a great video. And they deserve it, man. They deserve every bit of it for sure.
And you know you're going to get their honest opinion from them too.
Yeah.
You know?
Look at Clive. Expose the guilty. Not a chance, buddy. Yeah, I don't need to have my name picked around. Crap around like it's not online.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, we're going a little over an hour. Are you about ready to call it a day?
Yeah, I actually have an appointment in about 15 minutes, so I think it's a good time to wrap up. It was total fun.
All right, appreciate you for coming on, John.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around all this time.
I'll do it again, man.
You know, I don't think I can get anybody to stick around and listen to me.
Thanks for everybody that joined in on the chat.
Yeah, definitely. So good to see everybody chiming in.
Appreciate everybody that came on, and we will see you guys next time.
Cheers. Take care, guys. Thank you.
All right. Should be